Yo, what's up? What's up? It's the Hungry Millennial back again with yet another Proactive Pragmatism. On today's Proactive Pragmatism, we carry on with our series, Millennials Are. This millennial that I'm bringing to the table is a friend. We've been friends for probably almost a decade now. She goes by the name of Shan-Dana Hays. Dana, welcome to the show. What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm like right now I'm trying to wrap my brain around your new name. You know, it's like I've always called you Dana my entire life. So I'm like, how did that come about? Like, why didn't you use it when we were in college? That's a little interesting. I know
Well, I mean, it's one of those things like when you grow up, everyone was always like, excuse me, Miss Hayes. And I'm like, it's Shan-Dana. And they're like, Shan-Dana. So, I mean, it was just easier for everyone to call me Dana. There's like a backstory to it. Like my mom, I was born next to a little town called Shenandoah. And instead of naming me Shenandoah, my godmom's name is Dana. And my mom named me Shan-Dana. So Dana's my godmom's name, and she's a pretty awesome woman. So I was like, you can just call me Dana for short. And then as I've gotten older, in my career, people refer to me as Shan because it's easier for them than still Shan-Dana. So it's just, you know, I kind of answered them all. Like
it's like pick one, right? Like it's yeah, that's interesting. That's funny. So like you've come a really long way since we first met. Now you're a general manager.
Yeah.
And so how did that come about? What made you choose All About Eyes?
So I was working at KFC and A&W. I was an assistant manager without the title and the pay. But so I was going to move, decided against relocating, stayed. And my aunt contacted me and was like, hey, I'm looking for an optician at All About Eyes. And that same day that I had an interview at All About Eyes, I had an interview at Starbucks. I don't know if you remember, but that's when I had like fire engine red hair and my hair was like bright red.
Yeah.
And so I went into Starbucks and the lady's like, I would love to hire you, but I don't want to make you get rid of your hair. I was like, okay, I can dye my hair. Clearly, it's red. Then I went to an interview right after that at All About Eyes. And I met with the district there and my aunt. And during the interview, she was like, what is one thing that you know in management makes you a strong leader that complements your team?
Okay.
My response was, I like to give people compliment sandwiches based on performance. And she instantly was like, a compliment sandwich? And I was like, well, you know, some people kind of feel attacked when you're giving them guidance. So I like to hit them with something they're really good at, tell them this is what I want them to improve on, and then hit them with something else really good. Make them feel good about themselves. And they're going to be like, heck yeah, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Wow. And she was like, I love this girl.
Okay.
And they still gave me the ultimatum to get rid of the fire red hair. And I was like, all right, I can do that and start in 2 weeks. And now almost 5 years later, I'm here.
And then how did you said something really good there. You showed that empathy of getting to know the person and actually meeting and talking to the employee. How pivotal is that in the interactions in the day-to-day? Because some people might look at that as only a sandwich.
Oh yeah, but it's all about how you interpret the sandwich and you deliver the sandwich. Like, if I just look at somebody and I'm like, hey, I like this, but I hate this, but I like this, they're not going to take it that way. Like, but if you, for example, I used to have a prep girl who I loved, and she would always prep everything Then she would clean the lobby. But when she cleaned the lobby, she wasn't cleaning the lobby. She was great at prepping for me. And I just, I told her, I was like, I love that you come in and you handle everything. You prep us for the day. We're completely good to go. But when you go out to present the lobby, which is the face of our store, you're not giving that same appearance there. And she was like, okay. I was like, but so if you just follow through and we clean the lobby, like we clean the back part of the house, we'll be great.
Wow.
And she was like, absolutely, Shan. Never once did I have to. Well, then it was Dana. That was at KFC.
Wow.
That was before Shan. So
wow.
that's how that worked.
That's
we'll get you.
Yeah. Which is pretty interesting. Like so I was reading this book called Emotional Intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that perfectly because a lot of people can't read the room. They can't read the conversation. They can't figure out like, hey, if I say something to this person that's the wrong way, I might ruin the person. Because we also know that people don't quit jobs, they quit managers.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you have a great leader, I've been there. I know you've probably been there. They'll stay forever.
Oh, and I love that you said a leader, because there's difference when you're a manager and being a boss and being a leader. When you lead your team, you're going to get completely different results than when you act like the boss and the dictator in the room with empowerment entitlement. That's completely different. Anything in life, any relationship, you got to follow through with life that way. I mean, or you're probably not going to get very far, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I mean, it transcends the military. I remember when I was a general manager, it was hard to bridge the gap because people didn't know how to clean. And so coming from humble beginnings like you and I, cleaning was like the pivotal part. Like if I didn't clean, like my 5 sisters, I would hear it from them. You know what I mean? Like there was I'm like, but you got kids dragging a broom across the floor. And they're the next generation. So like, it's kind of interesting how it all works out. But from what I can tell, you're very family oriented. So how do you balance being a manager and a leader and then having to leave your store and go on vacation and balancing work and family?
It's a task. It really is. So not only do I balance that, I also balance it from 12 hours away. I have no one that's down here that's immediate family to me.
Okay.
I moved down here, just me and Bella, which is my dog. If you hear her running around, I'm sorry. But moving down here alone and balancing that, at first it was a lot of FaceTimes and, a lot of phone calls and stuff like that. The first 6 months was a little hard, especially whole pandemic aside, like just for sure being quarantined in Atlanta by myself. But it's became to where it's more natural. It was new. That was the thing. When I came down here, it was completely new. It was something I had never done before. So I had to learn what was going to be my normal for that. And it took a minute. Emotionally, I had to learn how that was normal, not to have my mom right down the block and my dad and Sunday dinners and my girlfriends coming over and having dinners at my house and drinking wine. I had to learn how to be independent. So it took some balancing and figuring out and more personal growth of myself. But now, like when my doctors have off, I take personal time off so that my store isn't going to suffer if I'm not there. But I also have a great team that can handle it when I'm not there. I still currently, just last week, I was in 2 different locations plus my own. Ooh. And went and helped out in 2 other locations. I bounce around a lot. I help other managers when they need help or when they're short-staffed and stuff like that. So that's something I've always done for All About Eyes. I wouldn't say always. 4 months after I started as an optician, I became a traveling manager. So I've always went around and helped out in other locations, but it all boils down to having that strong team that can hold the fort down when you're gone.
Okay. Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. Yeah, you're stronger than me. I tried to assemble my team and Big Corporate was like, nah, we're gonna throw who we want in there. And I was like, I got to walk away from this. So that was a part of my journey. I love managing. I love the people. I love watching them grow. But unfortunately, you get tied into a lot of bureaucracy where you don't have a lot of say or wiggle room.
For sure.
So that makes it tough. So doing all this, you would think. So what kind of you got like a master's degree to get this job, like as a general manager? Like, how did that work? What degree level?
Nope.
Did you?
Far from that. When I was 17, high school and adolescence is hard in general. You know, whether you're a teenage boy or you're a teenage girl, it is a lot of growth when you become a teenager, and things happen and life happens, you know. So I chose a little different route. I knew that I wasn't happy in my school. It wasn't that I couldn't do it or wasn't smart enough. I just gave up, which is horrible. It's like the last thing I can say honestly in my life that I just folded on. I gave up. I didn't care. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go to this alternative high school. And mind you, up until high school, I was in student council. I played softball. I did volleyball for a little bit. I was in cheerleading clear up until 8th grade. It just wasn't my scene in that sense, you know? So I went to an alternative high school. In the alternative high school, I was class president again. I built a student council in our alternative high school. I did fundraisers and raised money for our classroom to be able to have a TV, a DVD player, worked with my team on that, and the people in my classroom. And then when I graduated a year early with my GED, I was put on the county board as youth representative and did, you know, a little stint with that for a while, for about a year. And then I went back and was a teacher's aide at the alternative high school that I graduated from for a year, which was interesting because then I had, you know, people of my own peers that I had went to high school with that came in and they're like, Dana's the teacher? I'm like, no, I just grade your paperwork and stuff like that. But you know,
but that's fantastic actually, because it's like you're showing them that you can do this too. Like this is not it. This isn't the end of the road. Because you probably don't know this about me, but I actually went to an alternative school in, I think it was 8th grade. Yeah, I was bad. I got in a fight. I wasn't really bad, but I was playing basketball. You know, I was on the basketball team, and one day I come into the locker room, somebody said something, and then I got tired of him talking because I was a skinny kid back then. So I was like, you know, I got tired of talking, so I hit him in the face. And then, yeah. And then from there, it just spiraled out of control. And, you know, I go to this alternative school and I do really well. So, but it was like playing on easy mode because the curriculum isn't meant for people who thrive in the regular school, unfortunately.
No.
And even the kids that can thrive there, they're not focused on thriving. They're focusing on manipulating the system because they don't want to be there.
Yep.
Right.
Because
so
they were forced there. I was like, let me just do this so I can get caught up and get to where I want to go, you know, and take this as an opportunity, not, oh, well, this is better than juvie or another alternative, or, you know, like I knew that was my last chance. Like I had to get myself together.
Wow. Like what triggered that? Like, was there like a pivotal moment where you were like, I've got to get it together now? Was there something was there an experience, or was there just like how did you go about that process?
I guess, you know, from being from Charleston in such a small town and it not having very many opportunities unless you fought to take them, you know, whether you were like an Eastern student coming there trying to get a degree or something like that. But in my sense, at that point in time, that was not going to be optional. So I just knew that I wasn't going to stay in Charleston forever. Like I was meant for more. I wanted to see more out of my life. I wanted to go places. I wanted to see the world and all of that. And growing up, that wasn't, always a financial opportunity. We went on family vacations and stuff, but my mom wasn't able to send me to Europe or do something cool or, establish for us to be able to have all of that. So I wanted more. I always
you didn't want just Chuck Vegas. Chuck Vegas, people get sucked in and
No.
man, like
Sorry, I need to take a drink,
it was a whole no, you're good. Charleston was like a whole different beast. Like as soon as I graduated, I was like, I need to leave. I went straight to Champaign.
Yeah.
But so
not even trying to be like I'm better, but I wanted bigger things than
and that's completely okay. I think even as millennials, we have to stop limiting ourselves to the fact of saying like the people's perception of we think we're better, they don't know us. And so that's also why I started this podcast, because I was like, people, even one of my parents said this to me. He was like, yeah, you come across in your videos and all your podcasts as arrogant and cocky. And I was like, these people don't know what I've been through to be here. They don't know how many Christmases I spent in homeless shelters with 5 girls, trying to find a bed to sleep in the wintertime because we didn't have anything. I wasn't thinking about presents, And so it's very interesting how people are like, yeah, stifle yourself, calm down. Like, you got this ego. And I'm like, the only way that other people see the people that are behind us, they're rooting for us. And we are their beacon of light going forward. But a lot of people don't understand that. So a lot of times they're like, oh man, I hate to call it a bad place, but like, what's there?
Nothing.
Like,
and especially now, even 10 years ago, there was way more to Charleston than there is now.
Same with Carbondale. And I love it to death, and it's my city, but I mean, you got to get away and thrive. And the only way you get back,
a party city.
No, you can't. Both of them were.
Chuck
Vegas and Carbondale, Halloween parties, right? Like,
Polar
I live right in
Carbondale, everything like
that. So that's interesting, but that's good that you've done that. So where you are now as a general manager, does the GED conversation come up, and like, what are some of the misconceptions people might have about a GED?
So misconceptions, yes, absolutely. Like when I was younger and applying for jobs, even, just applying for fast food, it made an impact. And growing up, a pivotal moment to me was whatever I'm doing right now is for real about to impact me 10 years from now. No matter what, that's your brand. That's who you are, what you do, what you put out in the world, what you make of yourself, the name you have for yourself, it follows you. So do I want this negative connotation about me being a high school dropout and not going to school, or, not having lots of money and all of this to really define who I am 10 years from now? Or am I going to do something to impact that and change it? So I would say more so before I've had my career for the last 5 years, it did. Like, not even so much as people being like, oh, she just has her GED, as it did emotionally to me. But I had to establish myself. And now, if I was to put that I have a GED on top of everything else that are qualities that I obtain with my work history and my experience and what I do and how I maintain myself, I don't even think it would be an option. But at 17, was that one of the main things I was worried about? Absolutely. At 31, do I think that hinders my life? No. Because of who I've, made myself and grown to be, and my reputation, I don't feel like somebody's going to look at me and be like, oh, they might be like, really? Shan only has a GED? Other than being like, she has a GED. I don't feel like it's going to negatively impact me in that way.
Yeah.
You should just keep working to that. That's one thing that I always try to tell, because my little sister is 19. So she's a lot younger than me. I was 13 when she was born. We're the only 2 children that my parents have together. So I always try to think, when I'm 24 and my little sister's 12, what do I want her to look up to?
Wow. That's powerful.
I didn't have an older sibling. My dad has a son who's older than me, but he was put up for adoption. So he was never around in my life. So I didn't have that big sibling to look up to, which makes it easier sometimes, being up to 13, not having a sibling, Then I had a baby, a little sister, you know, I was like, oh gosh. But that's really what it was. I didn't want her to be like, oh, that's my sister.
No, I get it. I mean, family is like a super powerful like motivator. Like you see those young kids, you see them grow up and develop and become other beings, and you're like, man, I got to stop doing this thing. It's kind of miraculous how people can turn around. And I don't know, that's just very interesting. Like that perspective is a part of our generational story because we come from a lot of broken homes. And so it's weird that like people call us entitled, but at the same time, you know, like they lived a fairly, you know, different entitled life too.
And the same thing too, like you can come from a broken home in so many different senses. Did you come from a broken home of wealthy family, but you never got the love and attention from your mom and dad? Did you come from a broken home from your parents being divorced? You know, all of it. Did you come from a broken home with two parents that fought to be together just for the sake of you because they thought it was going to impact you in a better way to have both parents there, even though they were miserable? My definition of a broken home is different than your definition of a broken home and everyone else's. It's like the normal. What's normal? My normal is different than everyone's normal.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. You just, because I thought that I've had that conversation a lot because people are like, and it's weird because when I spend time with my daughter, people are like, keep doing that. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? Like when you say, because I want to get to the bottom of why they say that, right? Because I'm like, I'm trying to understand what they see. Because a lot of times we're just doing our best of what we can do. And I've never been the greatest father, but they were explaining that like, even though they had their fathers there, like I know people who have had like awesome fathers that were like special forces guys and all that, you know, they like that was their initial tune to me. That was their pitch of their parents. And then they go, but he only talked to me a couple times in my life. We never talked. They're like, if it wasn't about sports. It's shocking.
That's a different type of bond. Having a dad and having a father can be two different things.
Wow.
You know?
No, I get it. So like what are do you feel like there's an aura of like you being a millennial, like in the workplace, like people looking at you differently and thinking like you're more entitled than other people, or like you didn't work hard to get there?
It's happened a time or two, you know. I've had certain situations, you know, where I've been promoted or took a couple steps up a ladder or told, you know, somebody who I thought was a mentor, like, this is what I want to work towards next. And then either be like, well, you're too young for that, or you're not ready for that, or, you know, you've got a long way to go for that. Some of those, yes, I completely respect. Or when you're working with somebody and you get promoted, sometimes people aren't happy for you, even though you know you've worked really hard and what you were working hard for. Sometimes it's not perceived those ways. So you've always just got to have pride in what you're doing, have faith in yourself, know that you're doing this for you, not so much as for other people, especially if it's getting you movement in the right direction. You know what I mean? Positive attention is different than negative attention. Absolutely. So you should always put your best foot forward, be yourself, show up every day for you.
Okay. So what, other than us being the entitled, what what benefits do you feel like we have and opportunities that we have as a generation now that other people didn't? Because the problem is there's also a tune within the mix of, I find when I talk to people, they're like, well, I can't do this and I don't want to do this. And then they want to jump and be like, they don't want to put in 5 to 10 years. They want tomorrow, they want their business owner. I want to make my own money, business owner. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where that comes from. Like tomorrow, somehow Sinbad or Will Smith gonna hop in that Genie Aladdin costume and sprinkle some fairy dust. Like, dog, you got to go to work. Like,
yeah, absolutely. You got to start from somewhere. You know what I mean?
What opportunities do you feel that we're leaving out there?
So like, and there's so many different ways you can go with that answer. Like, How about the fact that somebody like you who works at FedEx on your free time, you can make just as much money in some of those positions as somebody who's went to 5-year college and has all kinds of college and tuition debt. Like the market and the industry of what was standard for somebody to grow and obtain and take care of themselves is completely different. Like 100% different game. You can do so many things without a degree and make just as much money as somebody in a corporate position who's still struggling to get that CEO position and move up that ladder because they didn't want to look at things from a different site. You can do, the whole world is changing, down to the generation under us who is, they're brand ambassadors, they're TikTok famous, they're famous for having a YouTube channel, opening presents. Like that was not in the ball game for us. Like we grew up in a different time. Like we grew up with going to school and them not teaching us how to file our taxes, how to invest, how to do things that are financially going to secure us, or telling us like, don't get a credit card, don't put yourself in debt. What? You need all of that. You have to establish all of that in life, or what are you going to do? If nobody has, there's no credentials and standpoint behind who you are, what are you going to get? Nothing.
Yeah, well, and that's facts. But I also agree that there's a portion of it where there is another side, but it's twice as hard. But it's also it'll burn longer in the flame when it comes to debt and all that stuff. Because the problem is you're not taught how to manage it. And those who manage it well, they do well. But the problem is you
can't max out a credit card and never pay it and then get another one and think that
and use that wouldn't have paid the next one to pay the
No, that's not how that works. But that's all stuff that we weren't really taught in high school. Maybe other high schools across the country taught people that, but I don't feel like in Illinois they were sitting down telling me like, this is how you're going to file your taxes when you turn 18. Like,
well, and most of us wouldn't listen anyway because the curriculum is all over the place. So
all over the place.
So it sounds like you're really. It's funny you mentioned TikTok famous. How do you? Okay, where do you see that going? Like, because the problem is, while I was deployed, I had troops who I got 2,000 views and likes, and I'm like,
right. It's different.
And I would see the video and I'm like, oh, you just told them how you tie your boots. And they found that interesting.
Like, have we been working in the wrong ways? Like, am I working really hard when all I have to do is send a video? But it's crazy. But it's real. It's happening. Like, I don't believe,
because I study trends and I don't necessarily think
it's gonna last forever.
Well. Because something that burns really, really hot in the beginning burns short. But a flame that builds up. We thought, hey, we was doing it with the SpongeBob background.
Put your own song on there, it's fine.
You know what I'm saying? You can customize everything.
You can pick your top 10 friends, you're my number one friend.
Look at us dating ourselves. Like everybody's like, the younger generation, MySpace. What is that? I barely have a Facebook, Right. That's kind of funny.
True. It's so true.
What advice for somebody who wanted to be a general man? Okay, we talked about that instant they want to be the manager tomorrow. What advice would you have to someone like that?
Are they established by any means, or are they just thinking that they should get it tomorrow?
Are those two separate things?
I mean, yeah, true that. I guess if you really in some positive affirmations and good light, if you want something, you can obtain it no matter what it is. You just got to decide how you're going to get it, what work you're going to put in, what you need to do to put in to get you farther. And it's communication. If there's that option in your company to grow, why wouldn't you talk to a mentor, another peer, see how did you get to where you are? What did you do? Because you never know. What if the girl that was working next to me, she just had a GED too, and she's a regional. She's running around having 22 stores and we come from the same place, but I didn't have enough faith in myself to ask questions. You gotta ask questions. You gotta figure out what it is if you want it. You can't just be like, oh, I want that, and think it's gonna happen. I mean, that's not how it worked for me anyway. Like,
it's not, to me, it sounds like you saying you got to have a plan.
I mean,
a plan. And then you got to actually do the work. You got to also show up at the job, huh? Like you got to, like, you can't just get the stimulus check and the taxes back and take a week off because you sick for a week.
Oh, but can I get a stimulus?
Use all your vacation. You know what I'm saying? Let me get that stimmy. I don't even think I'm gonna get one. I got the first one, but the next two was, I don't think I'm gonna get it. It's gonna be tax credits, so whatever. Like,
yeah, like.
But after a while, they just forget about us. Dogs got to eat too. You feel me? Dogs is expensive.
Or what about the credit for being a hard worker, taking care of yourself?
Ain't no hard work credits. There aren't any hard work credits.
There's not. But you better work hard if you want something.
Well, and I found that the path, and you may let me know if you agree or disagree here, the path is kind of servant leadership without looking at what could be and looking in the moment of what I can do now.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you might get to a point where you don't even really want to be the general manager, Like, even though I stepped down as a general manager, it taught me skills in business and communication skills and empathy and 100%. Emotional intelligence. Because I went in, I was a young military guy, doing that. So, I'm like, yeah, get the sandwich and you're going to put the mayo on the bread. You're going to do it like this.
This is Jimmy John. This is Sub So Fast You Freak. Come on.
It got the results, but in the process, you lose a lot of people because they don't care how much you know and how hard you train and your background. Like, they might respect it, but you just, They
respect you, but are they going to follow you?
No, that's facts. Like, and I call that the Jordan mentality. Because in the 80s, Jordan was the best. He was dominating. He was killing. He was murdering people on the court. But that wasn't winning any rings.
No.
Like, you got to get the team. You got to get them involved. Like, one person is an island. You get multiple people, that's a city.
That's a lot of work.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of work when you're on a one-man island.
Yeah, and you drive yourself crazy. Like, I'm learning every day. Like, even to this day.
You run the island, but are you going to run the whole island or are you going to run the island?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, because you can keep running in circles.
Right. And then you're over here and you're over here and you're over here and you don't know which way you're going. And you're like, man, I forgot to do that over here because I was still over here. And it's just, no, that's not how life works. You're going to exhaust yourself.
It sounds like you have been guilty of being a micromanager before, because that's what that sounds like to me, because I've been there.
Yeah. And micromanaging is one of those things where you're like, ugh, don't say that. But you can be a micromanager in so many different ways. Like, you can be a negative, like, micromanager to where you're micromanaging each person as an individual, or you can still be doing it on the manager backside, but not giving your team enough trust and having enough faith to delegate and here, will you handle this? Can you do this? And you do this and you do this. And then I'm still going to do these 5 things, but I trust you enough to be able to complete these tasks, and you're helping them grow at the same time. Look at that. You're winning. Like,
so my question is how does giving somebody who doesn't have a lot of say in big decisions, how does giving them an opportunity change their momentum? How does that move them forward?
Because if they grow, then I grow.
Oh,
if my team grows and they learn new things, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Then that's what allows me to be able to not be in the store a couple days a week.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, if they grow, then they're holding down the fort, and I trust them enough that in instances, there's been times where I'm like, okay, they'll still call me, which I love that they call me. They want my opinion. But I'm like, what would I do in that situation? If I wasn't there or you couldn't get me to answer the phone, what would you do if I wasn't here? Would you treat them the way you want to treat them? Or how do you think I would treat them? And then I'm usually like, okay, see, you could have handled that. but I appreciate you calling. You know what I mean? Like, you're
yeah.
giving them, it puts trust and faith in them. And then they start to have more confidence in what they're doing. And then they grow. And then look, they just got a promotion. The two people above them just got a promotion because they took their jobs over. And then, oh, look, I can go somewhere else now because everyone underneath me is cross-trained. They can all help each other out. Like,
that's huge. That's huge.
You know, like,
well, and then they start saying, "Oh, I was trained by this person to do that thing." You know, it's like you don't realize as a manager, like how many, like every time that you talk or interact with somebody, how that joy and that information spreads throughout the chain.
Them. Right. Yeah. It impacts people. And the thing of it is too, is I've had other people where I'm trying to teach them something and they've been like, well, what if I did it like this? And I'm like, huh, okay, that actually would take a few minutes off of what I was doing. So let's combine what we're both doing. And we both just learned something. Double
That's
win.
deep. That's deep.
You know, like,
because that's one thing that I started doing when I deployed to Kuwait, because I took on a platoon from a company that I wasn't organically a part of. And once I started giving them ownership and started listening, our plans got better. Our days got better.
Oh, yeah.
And even when they didn't want to do the mission, you know, or they didn't want to do things, you utilize tactical empathy and you say, hey, you identify the negative first. And then once you identify the negative, it takes that, okay, they feel where I'm coming from. Because as leaders, it's easy to be like, well, we just got to go. And you're like, you know, the truth is they don't care.
Oh, yeah, no.
About your feelings, because you make more money than they do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you out of the boat. It's like
when you're a leader, you can be seen as intimidating or
fearful.
And
especially like us.
How you portray yourself, you know, portray yourself as a leader too. Like, and see, I've never been that type where I want, like, anytime I go into a location and help, I don't want to walk in the door and somebody be like, oh my God, Shan's here. Like, I've heard about her, but I've never met her. I want somebody to be like, oh my God, Shan's coming to work with us today. I can't wait for her to come in here. You know, like, I've heard this, and this. That to me goes a long way compared to somebody being scared when I walk into a room.
That's an interesting style, because lately what I've tried to do is so when I go into the warehouse, I don't say nothing. I'm quiet. Like, people think I'm mean for real. And so I wait for the opportunity for somebody to need help, and then I go help them. And then I go ask them about them. They're like, oh my goodness, all the things that they said about this guy are the truth. And I'm like, no, it's not, because you didn't get it from me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all about you.
And you're paying attention still to what's going on.
And I'm not a manager. I've just been there for a long time. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just glad. I am grateful. When I started being grateful for just being able to be at work, that's when things changed for me.
Yes.
Because I'm like, what would a grateful person be? And what would they do?
Exactly.
How would they act? Would they like say, I've done all my stops. This wasn't supposed to be on my route, and deliver and take it back to the warehouse? Or would they deliver?
Take that extra mile and go and deliver that package. So
exactly. And if it was your package, how would you want that? Like, once I started waking up, I'm like, if it was your sandwich, how would you want that put together?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I mean, I sell glasses, so I help people see. So, like, even getting in a job, I'm like,
more important than sandwiches.
You know what I mean? Like,
I might have to hit you up. My eyes getting a little.
I always feel that way. I'm like, if this was me and I was to walk in somewhere, because sometimes I can take, you know, a lot of money in those situations from people. And people are like, they're just glasses. And I'm like, no, it's like buying a car. If you invest in your glasses, you're investing in your health and your vision. And we have these options because for a reason. And then here's the reason why. This is why you're going to benefit from it. You know, you have to put out there what type of situation you want to come back, no matter what it is.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds to me like you're really passionate about the health side. What does that look like? Because I've never heard anybody really put it quite like that. Like, we're talking about your health here with glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's important. Go ahead and speak on that for me.
Okay, everyone, Generally, people look when they come into an eye doctor's office, they see it more as retail.
Okay.
But it's not. Like if you have just a retail office that's selling glasses, like Sunglass Hut, something like that, something that's not a medical-based office, you don't really see the backside of things. But your eyes can tell you so much about your health in more ways than you can imagine. We can take a picture of the back of your eye, 200-degree backside of your angle of your eye, see if you have glaucoma, if you have eye bleeds, if you have all kinds of stuff. And yeah, like all of that, like you can see anything. Like it's surprising. It's like your feet, like everyone always tells you, like your feet, they're your feet. You can't get new feet. Well, you can't get new eyes. So you have to take care of them too. And they will also tell a lot about your body and your health.
Well, technically you can get some new feet, but you can't get new eyes. Your eyes ain't gonna work.
But
you
you're
get
not
some
going to get your own feet back. You can get prosthetic feet, but you're not going to get your own feet back. You know
what I'm saying? Eyes are more important to me.
Both.
I'm like,
yeah, I would rather take care of my eyes. Absolutely, that's kind of what I feel that I'm in.
Things work in mysterious ways.
Yeah, and it's knowledge, and it's a fast-growing business. Like optics changes all the time. Technology changes all the time. Advancements change all the time. Medical studies advance. It's a growing business. Like that was one of the things they told me when I was hired, is how I felt about change. And to me, I like change. I used to be really resentful against change, but change means growth. It's positivity. If you don't
go ahead. What were you saying? I was going to ask, how did you start looking at change as growth? Because that takes a lot. Like, that's not easy.
No, it's really not. And so when I went to an alternative high school, my alternative high school teacher, her name was Amber Blevins. Shout out AB. She's one of the best ladies I've ever met in my life. Love her to death. She always would tell us, like, listen, if you guys always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. Is that how you want to live your life? Where are you going to be tomorrow? What's going to happen? Are you going to do this today to reap the benefits tomorrow? How are you going to live your life? So that quote, just like, it's something that always sticks with me. I've always told myself, if I just stay here and I'm comfortable and I keep doing what feels good, then I'm never going to grow. But it takes time to realize, like positive change and negative change are two different things. If you accept the change and you keep doing positive things for your life, you don't see much of the negative change. And if you do, you're like, whoa, not doing that again. Don't want that to happen, like I would rather not experience that one more time. Let's try this a different way.
So on the topic of growth, we're getting, towards the end here. What kind of growth do we expect to see out of Shan-Dana in the future? In the next 10 years, where are you going to be? Where do you want to be?
In the next 10 years, I don't see myself leaving the company that I'm with. I just don't. So I would like to see myself with them in a position where I'm really helping everyone in the Atlanta area. I come from, our company was real small, and now we're real big, and we're nationwide, and we have 176 locations, and everyone's growing, and we're becoming a bigger family. So I would like to be able to say that I have a role in our company to go and help everyone establish themselves, make their lives a little bit easier, and just be happy, and content and growing still, even though, God, in 10 years, is that really 41? That's so crazy to think, but I would like to be established even more so than I already am, but retirement will be in 20 years, like I would like to say that and it's paid off and I'm good. Exactly,
So being who you are now, what advice would you give to a high school you?
To not give up.
Okay.
Not fold. Never fold. even if it's not going to work out in the way you want. There's always ways. Don't fold. Stay hard, stay true to yourself, and always remember to put myself first. And just continue to do what you need to do. Don't just think that life's going to happen, because it will happen, and then it's gone before you know it. Like, I'm not 17 years old anymore. I'm 31. And at 17, would I think that I would be right here right now at 31? I knew I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So I can say I'm happy, like, it's paid off. I've done it, despite no matter what anyone thought of me, what they said I was going to amount to be, where they thought that I was never going to leave Charleston. You're not going to amount to anything. I proved them wrong and proved myself that I could do it. So just keep trying. If it's not working, try it a different way. Get what you want. No one's going to give it to you. You got to work for it.
No, that's beautiful. Well, you know what? It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on my podcast. I know it was a little, everyone's like, oh, what are you going to talk about? What's your podcast about? I'm like, it's about you. So I appreciate you being emphatically you. And ladies and gentlemen, this was an interview on Proactive Pragmatism, Millennials Are, with Shan-Dana Hays. Thank you.
You're welcome.